used to feel pretty confident that despite a lot of people in this country not caring about their fellow citizens, the fact that they cared about themselves would at least spur some good action sometimes. And then the former president of the United States got shot at with an AR-15, and rather than logically adopt a new position on gun control, he and his followers instead adopted a new fashion accessory, a little teeny tiny sugar packet, delicately taped to their ears. And honestly, I feel dumbfounded. I mean, not by the new fashion trend, ugly on the inside, ugly on the outside, but by the fact that not even their beloved leader being attacked by their beloved gun could force Republicans to reckon with the merits of basic gun control. I thought that surely the defense of good guy with a gun would fall apart as they watched the Secret Service fail to prevent the shooting, because by now we already know that they don't really care if children get shot or high school students or worshipers or shoppers or moviegoers or concert goers or anyone. Literally all American lives have been touched. I just can't believe that watching their Lord and Savior, Donald Trump, be shot did not do it for them. Because that means that nothing will, ever. And I think that's important to mark, to let the realistic possibility or lack of possibility for gun control legislation really sink in. So yeah, I have some serious choice words for the assholes. I mean, standing in the way of comprehensive gun reform. For the people who want us to be grateful for an inch of progress every decade, it doesn't feel like progress when people continue to die of gun violence every single day, especially because I want so much more than the progress we're trained to be after. It is not enough. This is Choice Words. I'm Samantha Bee. My guest today is Roxane Gay, the prolific author of books like Black Feminist and Hunger and the column Work Friend. She's the author of the new article, Stand Your Ground, A Black Feminist Reckoning with America's Gun Problem, exclusively available on Everand. I think you'll be surprised by some of the things she says about guns. I absolutely loved our chat, so take a listen and make good choices. Roxane, I am so excited to see you. Thank you.
Oh, likewise.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for saying yes to Choice Words. Okay. Before we talk about your curated work on Everand, which I really, really love, especially your recent piece, but also Julia Turshen's is so good.
Isn't it?
Isn't so good.
You know, when I started the series, I just asked writers or people that I'm interested in, hey, if you could write about anything, what would you write about? And then go ahead and do so. And each person surprised me. I would never have guessed. And so when she decided to write about powerlifting, I was like, wow. And then I learned so much. And now whenever someone asks me about powerlifting, or if it comes up in even the most tangential way, I'm like, well, did you know?
Let me tell you something about powerlifting. I know. Her cookbooks are incredible. And same here. I feel like I completely learned something, and I definitely learned something about her. And it is really, it's very special. Okay. The show is about choice, whatever that means to you. And of course, we'll talk about big choices that you've made, but like the word choice really means something different for everyone that I talk to. How does that word kind of like sit in your body?
Well, especially now in a post-Roe age, choice is really about freedom.
Right.
About the freedom to live in a body as you choose, whether we're talking about trans people and their right to access to medical care that the rest of us have, whether it's people with uteruses being able to access abortion care, the right to live where you choose, the right to live in this country, regardless of your country of origin. Like, choice is really just about freedom. And it's very interesting that we live in a country right now where 46% of the country or so, give or take, wants to take away choice. They want to control the choices of the majority. That's interesting.
Yeah, they want their choices to be our choice. They still want to make choices. They just want
they think
us
their
to make all of
choices are
theirs.
the only choices.
Yes.
Like, for example, Kamala Harris, who's wonderful, made a choice that's none of our business to not have children, but she has stepchildren. And yet, like, a little Care Bear troll like J.D. Vance is out there criticizing her and other people who don't have children and suggesting that we don't have a right to vote because we don't have an investment in the future. I'm like, sir, first of all, I actually know children. I have nieces and nephews, but I don't even need that to care about the future. It just shows that some people have a worldview that begins and ends with themselves.
It
And
really
some of us
is
don't.
true. Like, as though people people without biological children don't want to even, there's no state, we don't plan to live in the future. What
Right.
is
Like,
happening?
we don't care what happens once we leave this
Doesn't
earth.
matter.
Whatever.
I'm going to blow it up before I go. My last step,
Just go out with a bang.
burn it down.
It's just so sad. Their worldview is pathetic. It's just absolutely pathetic. And I actually pity them that they are so afraid and they're so self-absorbed
Right.
and lacking in imagination that they don't want to interact with people who do have imaginations.
It is pitiable. It's almost a bless your heart. It's almost a bless your heart.
Almost.
Almost.
If they weren't so goddamn dangerous,
yes.
they would be like, oh, you poor things.
Such
But
menace.
they don't keep it to themselves. Like, they try to put it on everyone else. They try to make laws to prevent us from living our lives. So
Yes. Like a real black heart. Like that heart is just a little nugget of anger.
so much anger.
So
and
much.
also what's interesting is that so many of these people are wealthy and super successful. And then, when I was watching the RNC, and I wonder if you saw this too, the vision that these people kept talking about, I kept looking outside. Like, is the sky falling now? Is the danger in the room with us? They really make this place seem like an apocalyptic hellscape. And then you go outside and it's a beautiful day and everything is fine. And it's just shocking to me that thousands of people sat in that auditorium and were nodding their heads like, yes, this country sucks.
It sucks here so badly. Let
does
some
it?
more wrestlers tell us how bad it's gotten. Wrestlers
There was like
from the
so much
80s.
cocaine in that room that day. Oh my God. I was just like, it's snowing all over the place.
There were so many, kind of like quote unquote medical doctors with little black bags full of emergency supplies.
Lots of Narcan.
Oh my goodness. Are you excellent at making decisions for yourself? Are you a person who agonizes
God,
over
no.
choice? Or no?
It depends, really. I'm not historically great at making decisions, but I'm getting better, especially now that I'm near 50. There's just something about being in your 40s where you're just like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to stand by it and it's all going to be fine.
Right.
So I'm getting better, but it's challenging sometimes because I'm a Libra.
Oh.
So
you weigh, right? Does that mean that you weigh all your
I'm
options?
always considering all the options. I'm also a people pleaser, so I'm always thinking, who will be upset by this decision? Who will be happy? Who will love me? It's
You know
hard.
what? To be a writer who's so public and a people pleaser is a very
Listen,
difficult
It's
combination.
agonizing. It's so bad. It's just so bad. That's why I had to leave Twitter. I was like, I can't have this
do
much
this.
feedback in my life. I can't. I just need to be in my little cone of silence. One of the hardest lessons or the things that I've been having to learn, especially in recent years, is that you can't please everyone. And quite frankly,
Right.
my job isn't to please everyone.
Right.
It's just hard that sometimes it seems like I please no one, which is what it is.
Yes, I share those feelings with you.
I can only, especially like doing what you do, like that's a lot of noise
It's
sometimes.
just a lot of noise, and it's great to go to leave X to do all of that is actually it's essential to I think it's essential to the work, especially if you have a tendency to let those things in. You actually have to block them, and that makes, I guess, Instagram less fun in a way. No, I actually think it makes it more fun. If you look back at your life, can you think of a choice that feels like a really major one that maybe was unexpected for you that you wouldn't have thought would reverberate through the rest of your life?
I think one of the biggest choices I made, I was actually very young. I didn't realize what kind of choice I was making, was to go to boarding school.
Oh,
And looking back, I was very naive. I didn't realize like what I was actually asking my parents with that. Like I was just like, I want to go to boarding school because we moved around a lot and I didn't want to go to 4 high schools after having gone to 2 junior highs in 2 years. And I didn't know about the economics of it and things like that. I was just like, I want to go to boarding school so I don't have to go to so many different schools.
right.
And that really just sort of, I think, shifted the trajectory of my life in ways
Yes.
that I would not have been able to anticipate, especially at 13 years old when I started high school.
It must have been scary. Was it scary at first?
It wasn't necessarily scary. It was just different. And I needed different at the time. So it was not scary for me. It should have been. Looking back, I'm like, wow, I wasn't scared at all. I was just like, peace out. See you guys in 2 months. I
Wow.
can't believe my parents let me go. I just, because they're super clingy, not clingy. Oh my God, let me take that back. They're not clingy, but my parents are very like parenty. They're like right
Involved.
there. They're very involved to this day. So I'm really shocked that they trusted me and gave me that independence.
Trusting your children is that is scary.
It seems very scary. Like, and knowing who I was at the time, I'm like, oh, that trust is not well placed.
I love hearing, stories from people who at a very young age hit just a big swing, and it really knocked it right out of the park, like just changed everything. And something inside you, something instinctively understood that was what was needed in your life. So smart.
I can't believe I just sort of knew like this is what I need. And it wasn't, there were some challenges. It was a rough experience in some ways, but like high school is rough for everyone almost.
Right.
And if it isn't, ooh, what's going on with you? Serial killer.
Yeah.
But
Do not peak in high school.
no, it never ends well.
You don't even want to hang out with people who peaked in high school. They're just like, they're just lost to the world. They're all at the
and
RNC.
it's actually kind of sad. It's just like, oh God.
Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
many. You can actually tell too, like, ooh, you were hot in high school and then it just all went downhill. My goodness.
You were so good at baseball when you were 15 and a half. And it's never looked quite as good. Okay, can we talk? I want to talk about your article because it just in my own world, it just coincided with the fact that I just shot a huge PSA for Everytown the other day. So reading your article it just came at the exact right time. And I want to say that I'm going to put it out into the world, but I love your writing so much. I love
thank you.
your warmth. It's so conversational. It takes this big, sticky, huge issue of guns, actually, and makes it's so personal. It just invites you in as a reader. So, okay, I'm gonna say the name of the essay is Stand Your Ground, a Black Feminist Reckoning with America's Gun Problem. And it is part of your collaboration, Roxane Gay, which is curated series of ebooks and audiobooks available on the subscription platform Everand. Tell me about your collaboration with Everand. So did they come to you?
Yes. Everand is also known as Scribd. They tech companies, they're always doing something. And so they decided to like spin off their originals into Everand. I had worked with them before and they approached me asking if I wanted to curate a series of long form essays and they were willing to pay the writers a fair wage.
Which is like unheard of.
It's so unheard of.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful for the opportunity because, pay for writers right now is dismal. And it has just gotten worse and worse, even in the past 10 years, 5 years, 2 years. So to have that opportunity and to just let writers do what they want and know that the work would be well edited and well supported was really great. And the culmination of the series was going to be an essay from me. And so I decided, originally I was going to write about the history of Scandal. And I'm still working on that, but it didn't come together. And then I thought, I think I'm going to write about gun ownership and gun violence and just the American relationship to guns, which is toxic at best.
Right.
And, I learned a lot. It was, you think but then you really start to dive into the statistics and realize this country has a lot of guns. And
a lot. More guns than people.
More guns than people.
Yeah.
And no other country in the world has this, including the so-called violent and dangerous countries.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing to me that there are so many guns in this country, that many guns have been made, that people own them, and that a relatively small percentage of the country owns guns, which is to say, and I write this in the essay, that gun people are really, really into guns. Some people own hundreds of them.
Yes.
And yet they won't enlist in the army. So that's always fun.
I know it's from an outside perspective. And I grew up in Canada where we just don't have there are guns, but there's just not that kind of, it's not a gun culture in the same way. So this PSA that I was doing the other day, I thought about gun storage, just responsible, gun lockers, responsible gun storage. I literally don't think I've ever seen that depicted in a movie or a television show, unless it was the gun locker of a serial killer or a superhero or something in the back cave, just a wall of weapons that is revealed. People have so many as a hobby.
They do.
It's such a weird hobby to me. I know.
And so many people are so irresponsible with those guns. Okay, own the guns. But as you say, in film and television, oftentimes they're okay, let's not show smoking, let's not show drinking. But then there'll be guns, and you're right, you rarely see proper gun storage and proper gun handling. And that's one of the many reasons I think that so many accidents with guns actually happen in the home. It's children who are playing with guns, who think that they're toys. And it's people cleaning their guns without making sure that there's no bullet in the chamber. And, people have this very lackadaisical relationship to something that is a weapon that can absolutely take your own life or the life of the people around you. Yeah. And I wish we could have a healthier relationship to thinking about that.
Well, your conversation, or the article that you've written, it really invites people into your experience of gun ownership in such a, it's actually, I have to say, I think it's one of the freshest takes on gun ownership I've read
thank you.
In recent memory. I just don't think that people openly, at least not in I guess I don't subscribe to guns and ammo and weaponry magazines, but it felt super fresh. So, the context or the framing for the article is that Aerosmith song, Jamie's Got a Gun, from 1989, and the wave of gun violence that was happening. But do you feel little has changed? I think things have intensified. Do you think that we've actually missed the window for making change happen?
No, I don't. In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. I have to say it's both. I don't think we've missed the window because I do believe that a lot of Americans are absolutely fed up And when you look at what legislators who do care about gun violence are asking for, it's the bare minimum.
Yes.
Like, perhaps we should background check someone who wants to buy a weapon that could end the lives of hundreds of people at once. You know, when you say it out loud and you realize how little we're actually asking for, it makes me very sad because I really think we should be asking for way more. Like, there should be rules. I don't think just anyone should be able to walk into a store and walk out with a gun. And in Florida, in Texas, and in other states, you can actually do that. But the people who are wrapping themselves in the Second Amendment, it's a bit of a cult. They're fanatical.
Right.
They don't want any restrictions. And it just makes you wonder, what are you afraid of?
Right.
That you don't want a basic background check to be run for you to own a gun? Why do you not want people to be competent and to be licensed to hide a weapon on their person as they're out and about in the world with other people?
Yes. Like, do you really need gun violence to touch your life in a negative way before you can change your mind? Like why do people have to have a personal experience of something in order to imagine?
Even then, it doesn't necessarily work.
Right.
Like, there are plenty of people who have been touched by and harmed by gun violence, and they're still not willing to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, after Sandy Hook, that just broke something in me because I genuinely thought, oh my God, it's little white kids. Now they're going to do something.
Right.
And that's not only that, it wasn't just high schoolers, not that that's okay, but it was babies. Like 6 years old, 7 years old, the teachers who died, and then Uvalde. And nothing has changed. And in Uvalde, the cops who had guns were so scared of the AR-15 that this country refuses to ban that they wouldn't go in for an hour. They sat out there listening to people being murdered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on. It's embarrassing.
It often, and I think another reason why I really love your piece is because I always have this internal conversation whenever, some huge explosive event occurs, some mass shooting that we all hear about. I think, well, where are the responsible gun owners in this conversation? Like, why aren't there? Because I do think guns are not my hobby. It's not something that I love, but I can see that it is a beloved hobby for lots of people. And I do think the majority of regular gun owners are responsible and have proper training. They do store their stuff away. They love to hunt. I have no objection to responsible gun ownership, like whatsoever. Where are those voices in the wake of a mass shooting? And why does everybody still give money to the NRA? Reasonable people who can see that it's a cult.
I don't know. I think that's a really good question. And I do believe that whatever the answer is, I think it will be very telling. And what's interesting about the NRA is that a fraction of gun owners are part of the NRA. The NRA is not like, it has a very powerful membership, but it is not the majority of gun owners.
Right.
And in the essay, I have the exact statistic that I'm not able to remember right now, but it's just not that many gun owners.
Right.
And so why does the NRA and the gun lobby, why do these people have such a disproportionate hold on our legislators? And it's just so horrible. And why aren't responsible gun owners like louder about, yes, these are very small, basic things that we're doing that should absolutely be the norm. Instead, we have politicians who pose with children holding long rifles and AR-15s and other semi-automatic weapons as Christmas cards. Like, these people are proud of it.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine putting that kind of a weapon in a child's hand. I just can't. I can't imagine showing a child that weapon. I never saw a gun in my life except for on television until I was like 19 years old. And that's the way it should be.
And I did appreciate also that you do talk about the number of people who are injured by guns but not killed, because we really focus on statistics and the number of people killed by the weapons, but people are grievously injured. They're grievously harmed in shootings all the time. And we rarely give a voice to those people. I mean, people who are paralyzed, horribly injured, traumatized. There's a very wide spectrum in the aftermath of any given shooting that we never.
And some of the aftermath seems worse than dying. And I'm not even talking about disability, which is not worse than dying by any stretch of the imagination, but just like the horrific wounds where, you lose part of your intestines,
Yes.
or you have these wounds that get infected. Like, because medical practitioners have done so much work, like, you can actually survive quite a lot of things now. We're seeing this in people, in soldiers who come back from war, who are
Right.
able to survive things that during the Vietnam War, for example, were absolutely fatal. And so we have a lot of walking wounded and civilians who have to deal with the repercussions of gun violence. And there's very little attention paid to that because it's not interesting to people. We don't want to know about those repercussions. It's much easier to pretend that either you live or you die. And if you live, everything is okay. But for people who are severely injured, who get traumatic brain injuries, who lose limbs, who lose organs, like, the trauma continues and continues and continues. And like, maybe we should highlight that a little more without being exploitative to remind people that this is a really big problem and that we have to do something about it, because if not now, when?
Yeah. I think that listeners who haven't read the article yet might be surprised to know that you yourself, you own multiple guns, and
I do.
and I really would advise people to read the whole thing, top to bottom. It is great. And you talk about how feminism and gun ownership are centered in empowerment. They seem at odds with each other. Guns are used against women of color in particular. So tell me why it's not at all crazy for a feminist to own a gun. Can you talk about your path to gun ownership? It's really interesting.
Yeah, so I have my middle brother, who was a huge gun owner. He loved guns. He was just a gun nut. And also a responsible gun owner. And for many, many years, he tried to get my other brother and my parents and I to get on board. And we were always like, where did you even develop this interest? Because it wasn't around us. And so, I've been shooting with him before, and I was still like, it's not really for me. But then, as a writer, I get a lot of death threats, and I started getting threats that were very specific.
Right.
And that were not just some random person in his Cheeto encrusted basement, like people that seemed like they might actually do something.
Right. Not too far away.
Not too far away.
Yeah.
And I just thought maybe I should not just sit around like waiting for someone to come kill me. Maybe I should figure out like what are the best ways I can defend myself. And so of course I have an elaborate security system and blah, blah, blah. But I thought, let me just get a gun and learn how to use it properly. And my wife, of course, joined me in that. And so now I have a gun, and it's not even something I think about or frankly use.
Right.
I don't use it. I go shooting every once in a while to make sure that I can use it still and remember like, oh, okay, aim at the target. But, one of the things that we hear anytime a woman does something, like there's a lot of rhetoric around empowerment. And it's like, no, this is not empowering. But I do think that it can make you feel safer. It can make you feel like powerful. It can make you feel like some of your fate is in your own hands. There are always things we cannot control. But I would like to believe it might be a deterrent at the same time. And this is the main thing I grapple with. Like when you buy a gun, when you decide to own one, part of you is saying, I'm willing to use this against another person.
Right. Right.
But in that moment, would I? And I don't know. And I hope the answer is actually no. I hope that maybe I can just sort of like point it.
Right. Right. Just
Are we done here?
yeah, let it be just scary enough. Like, I'm
Yes,
serious.
Yeah, this is real. So perhaps you should go. One of the other issues that I really grapple with is like, how can you be a feminist and own a gun? Because I do think in some ways that gun ownership is antithetical to feminism and to this idea that we should find a different way of thinking about power, and we should have a different relationship to power. But I don't know that I'm able to reconcile it either in the essay or in life, but I also think it's not as contradictory to feminism as you might believe either.
It definitely feels like it's still a conversation that you're just continuously having with that you're still.
It is. It is. I don't have easy answers or conclusions, but I do know, we talk about the Second Amendment all the time. But when people talk about the Second Amendment, they're talking about it for white people. When Black people avail themselves of their Second Amendment rights, like Philando Castile, the young airman who was killed recently, and so many other Black people who legally owned guns and died because of it. Marissa Alexander, who's alive but spent 5 years in prison and house arrest because of standing her ground, while George Zimmerman is out free. That's also interesting to me. And Black gun ownership and Black women owning guns in particular are on the rise. And that's interesting too. Like, we should look at that. Why are Black people arming themselves?
Right.
I mean, we know why, but.
Well, yeah. I mean, you write a lot about stand your ground in the article. And because when Black people stand their ground, it can often be like life altering or fatal.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It feels like we should mark the timing of the article coming out, because just as we're taping this, we're grappling again with a white officer shooting a Black woman in her own home, Sonia Massey. It is really hard to believe that change is possible when it just keeps happening again and
again. It really is.
And again.
And what kills me is it seems like the police are a vocational program for cowards, because these men all have, mostly, but women are involved too, people in the police department seem really afraid of people without guns. And that is always shocking to me. Like, what exactly are you afraid of with a woman holding a pot of boiling water? Like, you can move out of the way. Like, she's not going to do anything with it. She was just taking it off the oven, off the stove. And she's dead now. And she called the police because she was afraid. And really, it was the police she should have been afraid of.
Right. Does a presidential assassination attempt even shock you? Does it, after living with this topic for so long? Or are you like, no, this makes a lot of sense?
It doesn't shock me. I'm actually, what shocks me is how long, it's been like 40 years, I think, since the last attempt on a president, which, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But, this young guy was angry and disaffected. And when we make weapons easily available, people who are angry and disaffected can do quite a lot of harm.
And when they have unfettered access to just
they do
lonely, disaffected people.
And Trump was very, very lucky, but Cory Comparatore was not so lucky. He leaves behind a wife and children and a community. And there were 2 other people who were severely injured. And meanwhile, Donald Trump gets a little shrapnel on his ear and then wears a fake bandage for a week.
His a wrapped maxi pad on the side of his
You noticed that?
head.
I mean, when I saw that, I was like, oh, menstrual. Okay. Okay.
He fell asleep on a pile of menstrual pads. Or
and it stuck. It had, adhesive.
It was sweaty. And it stuck to him.
Yeah. Well, the best part was when all of those lemmings started also wearing it. Like, I don't even know how, parody and, I don't understand how comedy writers are coping right now, because you can't even, make it up. Like, what does SNL do with this? Like, it's the truth.
I keep a lot of those photos in my camera roll just for my own purposes, just for my own pleasure.
Because you see all of these people who are like, she's a DEI hire wearing maxi pads on their ears for no fucking reason.
Maxi pads on the ears and a cowboy hat. And I'm like, is this?
This can't be real.
If you wrote this for television, it would be too far-fetched to believe.
I mean, a studio notes would be like, this is a little too on the nose.
Come on.
But it actually happened. It did.
Okay, so Gavin Newsom has tried to legislate against guns by mimicking how Texas restricts abortion. Do you think that's like effective or creative enough, a way to do things.
Ay, Gavin.
Oh.
I like him, actually.
Right.
I do. I think he's interesting and a little too polished because he wants to be president so badly.
So
And it's
badly.
like,
It comes off
dude,
him
we
in
can see you.
waves.
Yeah, it's like he was the kid sitting in the front row of the classroom when he was growing up and just like always raising his hand. And I'm like, bro,
Listen, I'll never
just pull it back.
There's just a part of me that goes, you were married to Kimberly Guilfoyle, and I can't
Listen, that's why he
can't-
can't run for president.
I know.
That's why he can't run.
It's that
Like,
photo
she
of
knows
them.
your dirt.
It's that photo of him, like, and the two of them on that shag rug by the fireplace. I'm like, there's something so icky here, and I don't know.
But like,
what it
how does
is.
she go from him
I don't know.
and then become a completely different person? And she has warped herself. Like, do what you want with your body, truly.
Yeah,
but
truly.
like, she looks terrifying, and she's always screaming because I think she's perhaps high on an altering substance alongside her fiance, who also seems to have a white upper lip at all times.
Everybody's
Just my goodness, like wow. How do you
so
do
much.
that? How do you go from suave Gavin to douchebaggy
don't
Don
understand.
Jr.?
I don't understand people's transitions. I really
Such a
don't.
transition.
Um,
Wow.
my God.
And she's gotten so much gender affirming surgery while being a transphobe. That's very interesting as well.
Very interesting. There's a lot of maybe, you know what? Maybe there's no surgery involved at all. Maybe it's just eating yams. I heard that works.
Wow. That's good to know.
Yeah. Okay, so you recently stopped doing your New York Times column, Work Friend.
Work Friend. Yes.
I
did.
loved work. I loved you on Work Friend. I loved you on
did
Work
too.
Friend. That's like such a terrible way to say it, but again, hearing your voice, very clear and true for me. Are you as good at taking career advice as you are at giving it? No.
Of course not.
No.
I wish. Well,
Okay.
no, that's not true. It depends on the advice and who it's coming from and whether or not I respect them.
Oh.
If I
okay.
respect someone, absolutely, I'm very good at taking career advice. I'm also
Okay.
really good, surprisingly, at taking edits
Okay. That's
because
good.
I recognize that editors, when you are lucky and have a good one, they're actually trying to protect you from yourself and your worst instincts. And they can also see things that we're often too close to the work to see.
Right.
So I appreciate that. And with career advice, if I trust you, then yes, I trust that you have my best interests at heart and that maybe I'm too short-sighted. But if I don't trust you, then you can keep that.
Yeah.
And I'm good.
Thank you so much for the feedback.
We're good. We're
We're
good.
going to move through that quickly.
Especially when I get advice from people who don't know what they're talking about. Who don't have
There's
any
no other way to say it.
experience.
Who have no
No,
experience.
there isn't. It's just like,
who've
no.
Never gotten paid to write. This.
Correct. Like, this is a pass. This is no.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing.
But
People
thank you.
love to give advice, myself included. So I understand where the instinct comes from.
Is there a work friend? Did you ever give advice on Work Friend that you remember? Is there anyone that stands out to you? Anyone who wrote to you?
All of it stood out to me because one of the most startling things, I fell into Work Friend in an unexpected way, and it lasted much longer than I would have thought. I loved it. I hope I get to do it again in the future. But so many people have such terrible jobs, man.
Oh boy.
And the jobs are terrible not because of the work they're doing, but because of the people they're working with and or for. That's the most memorable thing I took away, that like we shouldn't have to live this way. So many people cannot afford to leave their jobs
Yes.
because they need health insurance, because they're supporting their families, contributing to the household,
Yes.
contributing to themselves, whatever. And so they're stuck in these really untenable situations with abusive bosses and undermining coworkers and so many smelly coworkers. You would be shocked at the number of letters you get about like, the dude next to me stinks. What do I do?
I am not going to be shocked by that at all. I once worked with someone who clipped their toenails at their desk. Put their feet on their
absolutely not.
desk and clip their toenails. So, you know what I'm saying? We've all...
Who does that? Who looks at their toes at work and is just like, let's give it a trim right now.
I got to clean these up. Everybody will be so happy.
I think everyone wants to hear that disgusting little.
Oh my
Yeah, my
God.
wife has a misophonia and can't hear certain sounds, and one of those sounds is toenail clipping. And so I always just wait till she leaves and do it like in my bedroom where one should be clipping their toenails.
It's a private act. It's
It
a
really
private
is.
act. Unless you can't, if you're elderly, sometimes you can't reach your toes, and then
Right. There are always
it's
circumstances, but there's never, ever a circumstance where doing it at your desk is okay.
literally
Unless your
never.
desk is on an island and you're the only person on the island.
It's your planet, and
And it's late at night.
You're the only employee on your planet.
Yeah, just say no.
You're writing for TV. Are you good at taking studio notes? Do you love receiving? That's a different
Studio
type
notes
of
are
edit.
tough.
They're tough.
They're tough. I need to get better about this. I will get better about this because it's new to me. The TV world is new to me. I can take notes from fellow people in the room. I can take notes from a director. I can take notes from the showrunner. It's hard for me to take notes from an executive.
Yeah.
It's hard. And
It's
that's my
real hard.
own limitation, and I'm working on it. But in general, I do take the notes. I do, because I recognize that this isn't going to go anywhere until I apply those notes. It's not up
Right.
to me. This isn't like book writing. In book writing, in general, you're the boss. You have control. In
Right.
TV writing, like, you're just a cog in the machine. At least where I'm at right now. I'm just a cog in the machine. And it's actually been really good for my ego.
Great.
Just let's get some humility going on here. You are a zygote. Nobody cares.
It's a different way of taking notes. Like
It is.
it's not so intimate. Often you feel that the unnamed executive has not perhaps even read the thing that they're giving you notes
Well, that's
on.
the thing that challenges me. Like, some of the notes
Yes.
I've gotten are like, can you take out the major plot point that was the reason we bought the project in the first place? Can I?
Okay.
No. Literally no.
It's the name of the project.
Right? Like, can you take out the kidnapping in this book about kidnapping? I don't think so. I just don't.
Can we hop on a call into the next 10 minutes?
Hop on a call are like the 4 worst words in the English language. First of all,
Hop
like,
on.
hop?
Hop.
I'm not going to hop on anything.
Hop on in.
But if
I
you
re-
want to get on the phone, sure, let's do it.
I recall once receiving some studio notes for some project that I had written. And the note was, it was just like, so much is happening in this. Just a lot of like stuff is happening. Is there a way that you could take all the stuff and like get rid of it and then put it all in a room? Like, remember how Friends was mostly in like just like either one room or a different room? One of 2 rooms mostly, the coffee shop or the apartment, just like that. And it was a story about like a celebrity chef who traveled the world. Like, it really was just a very active, vibrant. Anyway, do less. Okay. Hop on a call. Let's talk about taking everything out.
Let's get into this. Yes. Like, please tell me how to eviscerate. Like, I had a project once. Oh, the strike was so bad.
So bad.
It was about a teenage girl. And then afterwards, they were like, yeah, we don't want to make a show about a teenager.
Oh my God. Oh, what?
Yeah. And so I just was like, okay, well, okay. I will just take back those 4 years of work. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, no.
I actually can tolerate it in many ways because the thing about TV is that the check goes through whether they make it or not.
Yes. Yes.
In some ways, like, maybe not as big a check as you were hoping, but at least in TV, they do pay you for your work most of the time. And
when it's paying you, it pays better than most jobs.
yeah, it does. And the WGA, it's such a great union. I love being part of the WGA. Like, they're just really good at what they do. And So for whatever the complaints are, I have to say I love writing for television. I think it's so much fun. Goes so much faster than books.
Right.
And working with other people has been, at first it was hard, but now I'm just like, yes, let's just sit in this room and vibe. Let us talk about this one thing we did in high school. Let's get there. Yes.
I like that part too. Just breaking stories. It's just like a fun, collaborative, like a bunch of like-minded people just kind of with snacks.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh my God. The
High
snacks
quality.
are so good. And then like every day they take your lunch order. And it's like so good. Like you're gonna go and bring me back a lunch, and I get to choose it. Oh, stop! It's just I find as a writer like that's lap of luxury shit. I gotta tell you,
that
is
is
so fancy to me.
Next level, very very fancy. When it happens, it is delicious.
When it's good, it's very very good.
And the health insurance is nice.
Yes, it is. It is. Just like, how am I going to get the rest of my hours this year? I'm going to figure it out.
I feel like that, going back to talking about work friend for a second, I'm like, you know what, that talking about even mentioning insurance makes me remember that I do feel like people are really stuck in jobs because we have to be risk averse here. Like
Absolutely.
Okay, we have healthcare in Canada. I mean, I don't want to brag, but I lived there for 33 years.
Braggable.
And had it's not a daily concern. It's not a daily burden or backpack that you carry. And it just affords you a tiny bit more risk in your life.
You
can take a few chances. You can leave a job that's unhappy. It opens up a world in such an unexpected way, and just inviting you to try something that you love for less money.
And I remember when I was young, there were many, many years during my 20s when I did not have health insurance. Mm-hmm. And thank God for youth. Looking back, thank God that I didn't get in a car accident and I was very healthy. So I didn't actually need insurance or to go to the dentist. What are teeth anyway? But you get older and you're like, this old bag of meat is probably going to need some maintenance. Or if you have children, kids break things and have illnesses. And so it really ties people to very unfortunate work situations. And
it does.
Man, this country will not be great until we have universal health care.
I am so with you on that. I am 100%. I am in lockstep with you on that.
And I can't believe we have to convince people.
I know.
That healthcare should be free and you should have it and it should be unlimited access. My parents are on Medicare because they're over 65 now. Mm-hmm. And everyone should be on Medicare.
Everyone.
This should be the standard. You shouldn't have to wait until you're sort of in the last third of your life to be able to get health care. Yes. It's just maddening. Anyway.
You shouldn't have to make the decision. You shouldn't have to wake up in the morning and your shoulder doesn't work. And then you think, should I see someone or should I just...
should I walk this off or should I go back and face this abusive boss who keeps trying to have sex with me against the desk?
How many leaves is it okay for me to take before I drop dead from a leave?
The amount of consulting Dr. Google gets from people who have inadequate health insurance. It's just guys,
my goodness.
We deserve better. Dr. Google is not actually a doctor.
Well, we deserve better in a lot of ways. And I thank you so much for writing this article. And I hope everybody subscribes and reads it and loves it the way that I did. Oh, it was so fun to talk to you.
Likewise.
That was Roxane Gay, and I had no choice but to look up one thing. Roxane mentioned that the U.S. is number one when it comes to countries having more guns than people, so I had to check which lucky country was next. Well, okay, the U.S. has 120 guns per 100 people, and the next in line is Yemen, which has about 52 guns per 100 people. Oh, God. Okay, well, thanks for joining us. I'm Samantha Bee, and see you next week for some more Choice Words. Thank you for listening to Choice Words, which was created by and is hosted by me. The show is produced by Tzvia Baron-Reinstein with editing and additional producing by Josh Richmond. We're distributed by Lemonada Media, and you can find me at RealSamB on X and Instagram. Follow Choice Words wherever you get your podcasts or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership.